Joined today by Charlie Luxton. Charlie, sir, how are you?
Very well, really good.
Good, good. We managed to sort the lighting out, which was a lot of fun.
I know I should be better at all that given the amount of filming I do, but Zoom and whatever, yes.
Zoom and not used to the sun. That's our problem. So tell us what you've been up to, recent projects. What's going on?
So we're doing some amazing projects actually within the practice. The practice is now 11 people, the architecture practice. And we're doing some really good projects on rewilding. So one of my favorites is a 700-acre rewilding project in the Isle of Arran.
Okay.
With a distillery and accommodation and a wild spa that makes the most of this beautiful natural beck, this stream that runs through the land. And the idea is to tie the heat that you get from generating the distillery to run the spa, and then there's trees that we need to take down on the land because they're dense deciduous planting. We want to put broadleaf, natural sort of Caledonian plantings. That's a hugely exciting project. And then there'll be like little wild cabins scattered around the landscape. Another one is we're looking at a life sciences laboratory in central Oxford for one of the colleges, which is really exciting, right in the middle of Oxford. So lots of history, lots of technology, trying to get that as deeply sustainable as we can. That's a really challenging one. In terms of the TV, started a new series and doing various bits and pieces of filming. So that's all sort of ticking along, like side by side, which is lovely.
Fantastic. Tell us. You mentioned kind of obviously sustainable, like building art works as such. Talk to us about where we are and your perception about the sustainability of the building environment and how we're doing, how we're getting on.
It just seems to me like there's a lot of great stuff happening, right? In terms of new builds, in terms of everything that we're doing going forward, it looks like we're getting there. But, I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, but we now understand about energy in use. We understand that buildings need to use less energy while they're running. There's still a lot of challenges around that, but we're getting there on that. We're a little bit behind on that one is the embodied energy. So the amount of energy it takes to actually make the stuff and make the building. And so if you imagine a pie like this, traditionally the energy in use of a life cycle of the building might have been a quarter. So it might have been 3/4, and the energy to make it was a quarter. But as you shrink the amount of energy that the building uses while it's being occupied, gets smaller and smaller, suddenly the energy it takes to manufacture the thing becomes way over half, sometimes 3/4 of the energy. So actually we need to look at embodied energy. That is a challenge we're not tackling properly yet. Okay. And that also, we're not tackling the existing housing stock or the existing building stock. We're just not really, that's the big one, right? 80% of all the houses and buildings that are going to be standing in 2050 exist today. Yeah. And we're not doing enough. So good and bad, I think, would be my take on that one.
So from your perspective, who needs to drive this? Is this a rising of the people kind of, or does this need to be driven by kind of lawmakers and kind of theorists?
Yeah, I mean, I think the logical answer is we need leadership from government and politicians. And I've been saying that for the last 25 years and it hasn't been happening. Actually, I think where the answer is going to come is from businesses and consumers and individuals. So, consumers putting pressure on businesses. So every pound you spend as a consumer has a kind of political clout that I think we need to be very aware of. And actually choosing to buy and shop and support brands that share your agenda about the environment is one of the most sort of smart things you can do. I think people individually in their lifestyles are starting to make the right choices as well. I mean, it's hard, right? There's a cost of living crisis. And unfortunately, the environment is something that, short term we can sort of possibly throttle back on, but actually that's going to cost us an enormous amount in the long term. So there's sort of a false economy there. Yeah. The great tragedy in all of this is that the government and governments, and specifically our government, probably no worse than a lot of governments, but across the board governments are failing the challenge, right? I mean, They should understand, they should have the ability to take a longer term view. And I think fundamentally the 4-year political cycle has got a real problem to play in that. And I think the sooner that advanced democracies can say, let's try and take some of this environmental stuff out of the 4-year political cycle, suddenly you can get cross-party consensus. You might actually start to get the frameworks that we need to deal with this generational shift.
So where do you stand on environmental activists? Kind of, is it beneficial and does it raise awareness, or do they set things back because they're not going through the governmental channels of politics?
I think that's a huge area. I think personally, standing in an ancient woodland and stopping diggers, I'm kind of slightly for that, actually, because I think we undervalue these assets. I think personally HS2 is a ludicrous project, given the move to Zoom. It looks like the biggest white elephant in history, and the amount of concrete that they're pumping. And it's not even going to, arguably, it's certainly not going to get as far as Leeds, we don't think anymore. Probably not even going to make it into central London anymore. So it's like, well, what's the point? I got from outside London into Birmingham 15 minutes quicker. At the cost of what? 100 billion. I mean, it doesn't make any sense when you could probably spend 100 billion on small transport schemes around the country and get way more economic benefit, way more speed in everyone's lives. I mean, you go to the north of England, we've underinvested in the north of England transport. Like historically, it's incredible. I mean, I'm surprised the north of England doesn't all rise up and sort of riot, because they've been underfunded for a very long time. So for that, I'm good. People jumping on tube trains and stopping people getting home from work, that makes no sense to me. I'm like, what are you doing? That's just a massive own goal. So I think we need activists always. I think we need them to be smart about what they do.
Let me ask another question, kind of something we've been talking about at Speaker's Corner, is kind of plastics and alternatives to plastics. In terms of materials out there, where are we kind of in that sort of sphere?
Yeah, in the building industry, we've got some really good stuff. So this is something we've done a lot of work on in our projects over the last 10 years, because I have been obviously spending a lot of time on building sites. And what's really interesting is if you're on a building site and you get down in the mud and you pick up a handful of mud where the construction's been going on and you rub it in your hand, you will find a whole truckload of microplastics, tiny particulates. Because every time you get one of those rigid bits of insulation and you saw it, you get this explosion of tiny bits of plastic, and they get broken down smaller and smaller and end up in our rivers and our streams and in the ocean and in us, as we're finding out. We've got a lot of alternatives, not necessarily below ground, although there are some, definitely, foam glasses and some kind of blown aggregates and stuff. There's a lot of stuff. Certainly things like wood fiber, like we use a lot of wood fiber, blown cellulose, secondhand wood, newspaper pulp and paper pulp. We've got a lot of alternatives that are not living in big oily boxes, which is what most houses are. So, I think from everywhere else in the world, it's moving on very quickly. I'm a keen surfer. You might see a surfboard sat in the back there. You can now get natural rubber wetsuits, Ulex wetsuits, which are not made from petrol. So that's fantastic. And you can get grips on the back of your boards made out of algae growth, and the resins themselves in the surfboards are bioresin. So that's, we are moving in the right direction everywhere. And I think we just got to continue that investment. It costs more, right? But actually, when you think about the long-term impacts on the environment, it doesn't. Problem is we just defray costs, don't we?
Yes, that's the game, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's all about accountancy. Just really crap accountants, basically. That's the bottom line.
We're all never good at numbers. That's half the problem.
And especially the accountants, because they never put any cost on things in the future.
Let me ask one more question, kind of just to round off, I suppose. As a consumer, when we're doing stuff, whether it's a big building project for ourselves or whether it is going shopping or whatever, what would you say is the one bit of advice or one question we should be asking ourselves when we're making these decisions about our pathway forward?
Do I need it? Do I need that thing? Like, genuinely, do I need that thing? Because I think a lot of the time we buy for very complex reasons, because we've been trained, we are super consumers. We've been trained to consume since the moment we were born, really. The moment we first saw an advert on TV, the moment we opened a magazine and newspaper, we're all Olympic grade consumers, right? So the big question is, do I need it? Do I need this thing? And then if you do, cool, get it. You need stuff, right? That's fine. What is the best way? Like, can I buy the best thing that's going to last a long time? Can I buy the most sustainable thing? Can I do less better? And I think this is something that that I try and get into the practice, like the people that work with me in the practice, everything we do, like, do less, do it better. So buy less and buy more sustainably. And I think that's got to be the one thing I think we can all try and do. Charlie
Luxton, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking, and have a good rest of the day.
Cheers, mate.